So the future continuous will be the topic for this video, and to understand the future continuous, you just want to understand that it's exactly pretty much the same thing as the past continuous. Now it's best if you've watched my video about the past continuous already. But what we said about the past continuous was that it was the same as the present continuous, but instead of being at the current time, it was at a past moment. And it helps for this to look at some diagrams, timeline diagrams. So if this is a timeline with time going from left to right, and this bigger line here being now, present moment, and the present continuous looks like this. It's a temporary thing. It's a temporary thing happening right now. And the past continuous, like I just said, is a temporary thing happening not now, but at some moment in time. What we learned when we talked about the past continuous is that we needed to have this past moment somehow. And there are two ways to what I call define this moment. And that was just to state the time, or to use a verb in the past simple. So you could say, for example, I was sleeping at 3 a.m. Or you could say, I was sleeping when you called. Okay, in this sentence, 3 a.m. will be the defined moment, and in this sentence, when you call will be the defined moment. So the future is exactly the same, actually, except instead of being future continuous is the same as the past continuous, except at a past, or not past, a future moment instead of a past moment. So we take this one. We'll just want to put a future defined moment here, and this moment will be defined in almost exactly the same way. There's a small difference, which is the only real difference between the two things. And so you see, instead of being in a past moment, it's going to be at a future moment. So if we want an example, you could say, I will be sleeping at 3 a.m. tonight. So 3 a.m. here will be this moment right here. Okay, in these sentences, didn't say exactly, but that moment, either 3 a.m. or when you called, would be this moment right here, and then sleeping would be this thing right here. Hopefully you saw that. So it'd be the same thing. Here's sleeping in the future, like tonight, and here's 3 a.m. tonight, this coming night. It will be our defined moment for that future continuous thing. Now, I'll point out the difference between the present continuous, because you could just make the comparison with the present continuous again, too. And you could say we're going from this to this. So we talked about this difference when we talked about the past continuous. There is a small difference. If we use the present continuous, the thing has to continue beyond the present moment. So for present continuous, it has to beyond now, the time of speaking, in other words. Okay, but the past continuous and the future continuous can end exactly at the defined moment. So there's a small kind of difference there. So we can have this where it is happening at the defined moment and continues beyond it and then stops sometime later. By the way, continuous means the activity of the verb is temporary, right? So temporary thing happening now, temporary thing. I think we said that earlier, didn't we? All right, so it's going to have an ending. But with the past continuous and now with the future continuous, this ending can be right exactly at the defined moment. So you could say, for example, I will be sleeping when you call and wake me up. Okay, so here we have the continuous activity ending exactly this moment. Okay, with the, what's this one doing here? Oh, see. Okay, with the present continuous, that can't be. It has to, it's happening now, it has to continue beyond the moment of speaking. All right, so the only difference that there is between the past continuous and the future continuous, besides that it's a future moment that the thing is happening at instead of a past moment, is that is how we define the moment when we do it with a verb instead of just stating the time exactly. All right, so with this one, when you call and wake me up, we have this one right here. So when you call and wake me up, so notice, let's do a comparison right here. I was sleeping when you called, and I will be sleeping when you call and wake me up. Now, here's our defined moment for this one. And here's a defined moment. Let's say this to make them equal. But that's possible in both cases. So we have these defined moments. And when we were in the past, when we did the past continuous, what tense did we use? We used the past simple to define the moment. But when we define the moment here in the future, what tense do we use? Do we say, I will be sleeping when you will call and wake me? No, we don't say that. We just say, when you call and wake me up. Okay, we don't. Just getting crossed out. So this is a mistake that people make a lot of the time. I think that thing is going to happen in the future also, so I should put it in the future. Right, but you should not do that, and because it has to do with something that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Future 1, which is that we don't really have a future tense in English. The future can only exist either in the past or the present time. So we can have future in the past, or we can have future from a present moment. And so when we want to add in what is really an adverb phrase, when we add an adverb phrase to a main part of our sentence, then this one will just be in the present simple. So that's a theoretical reason for it, abstract, deeper kind of conceptual reason for it. All you have to remember is that you want to define the moment with the present simple. Okay, if with an adverb phrase. Now, this is not the only way actually to define a moment. In the past, there's no real difference. You just use the past simple, whether it's an adverb phrase or whether it's, you'll see if it's a separate sentence. If you say, for example, I will call you at 3 a.m., you will be sleeping. Now look what we did. We used the future for both cases. And that is because this is a full separate sentence. And this from this one. And in this case, it was just an adverb phrase that we added on to the other sentence. And if you need more information about adverb phrases, I recommend my materials about that. There's a section for that, adverb phrase section. I think that's what it will be called. So there is this difference between whether you define the moment in a separate, it doesn't have to be a separate sentence, it just has to be a separate subject, verb, object if there is an object construction. So you could say you will be sleeping at 3 a.m., but I will call you anyway. Sorry. Right. So it doesn't have to, it just has to be a separate subject, verb, object construction. So we have I will call you. It's not part of an adverb phrase, in other words. Okay, this is a conjunction. We do have a subject and verb in this thing, so it's a very subtle difference. But we don't have a preposition connecting this to the rest of the sentence. That's the difference. It's getting pretty technical, I know. I think that's about as simple as we can make it. Usually you're going to form it this way, and usually you're going to define the moment using the present simple for the future, again because there's no real future tense, and when you form the future from now, you really are still in the present tense. That's the deep reason. But if you have a separate kind of idea that is not connected to the main idea with a preposition, then you have to form the future separately. Okay, so thank you.